summer of 1977, and after uni, I headed out to sunny California to have summer traveling States. I headed up from San Francisco on a Greyhound bus and decided to do some camping. So I got off the place called Branson House in Oregon, and I walked off into the wilderness with my huge bright yellow backpack that will feature later. On my first ever solo camping trip, I had zero experience I was intent just on exploring the area around the Rogue River wilderness and then to walk up to Crater Lake. So I had 2 nights out in the wilderness, and that was just absolutely wonderful for a city boy like myself. But one of the things was I was really surprised that there was no one else on the trail. I mean, there was no one, absolutely no one, from dawn to dusk. It was just me, and I'd never had that before. England and Ireland tend to be quite crowded places. That was a very unusual experience. But I quickly got used to the sounds of the forest, and was very excited to see a few deer, lots of birds. It was just beautiful, beautiful summer's day. So then the third day came. So let me just try and paint a picture of this. So I was walking along a pretty clear level trail, probably about 7 feet wide. So to my left was a very, very steep forest, which went up probably at an angle of maybe 60 degrees. And then to my right, there was a bank which dropped down to a dry riverbed. And the riverbed this was in the height of summer. It was maybe 100 feet wide. And it was mostly composed of kind of big smooth pebbles the size of your fist. So it was very rocky. And the river itself had been reduced to a small brook, about 5 feet wide. And then after that, on the other side, we went up almost vertically into very, very thick forest. And during those 2 nights, I camped close to the trail that I'd been walking. And it was very peaceful and just so beautiful. On the third day, I broke camp and again walked on my own for a couple of hours. And again, no sights or sounds of humans anywhere. I don't even mean on the path, I mean there was just no plane in the sky, no distant sounds, completely human-free. So after a couple of hours, I felt this
going to Clearfield.
Strange pressure on the back of my chest. Not a physical touch, but like a sort of insistent tingle. And it was a feeling that I'd often had in Belfast in the 70s and that I'd come to really, really respect. And that was someone's gaze was on me. I could feel that I was being intently watched. And I started to hear sounds behind me, quite a way behind me, at a distance of maybe 30 to 40 yards. So first, like on one side of the trail, on the forested bit, and then on the other side, as if it had kind of crossed the path. And it was like some loud rustling sounds. And it didn't sound like the sounds that deer made or small forest creatures. It was different. So I stopped several times, just in case I wanted to, I don't know, like a branch of a tree coming off or something. I didn't know. But I stopped several times, but then so did the sounds. And I'd been briefed at Grant's Pass, where I got my hiking map and stuff, that there were often black bear. I wasn't afraid of them. On a previous summer in Yosemite, one actually had walked on my sleeping bag, although I was sleeping under the stars, and I was in the bag at the time. But it was more exciting rather than scary. I didn't have a fear of it. I kind of felt if I came across one, I was confident I'd know what to do. So I kept on walking. This sense of being watched continued, and I mean for quite a while, talking about hours. It was very persistent. I called out a friendly hello, but there was no response. And the forest began to get the whole environment around the forest began to get more quiet. It wasn't a sudden thing. It was I kept walking, but it started to feel a little spooked, especially as the feeling of watching just kept on going, and there's no one else there. I honestly felt like I was the last person on Earth, and that someone was turning the volume control of the voice and just watching and watching. So I decided to see if I could catch sight of whatever or whoever was firing. I catching them as they crossed the path, and I noticed that the sounds behind me were switching from one side of the path to the other, but I kind of clocked it was about every 10 to 15 minutes.
Every journey starts with a dream, and all dreams come with a price. Saving is an uphill climb, but with goals, determination, and the right financial partner, there's no dream you can't reach. No peak is too high. So what are you saving for? Share your dream with us for a chance to win $1,000. Start saving with Bank of Utah today.
So on impulse, I just rapidly swiveled round, and for a fraction of a second, I saw this massive human-like shape move across the path behind me to the bank, and it was only a fleeting glance, but it was too big. It was clearly too big to be human, and it was way too tall for a bear. Holy heck, what was that? So, strangely, I kept on walking, but I didn't hear any further sounds behind me. But the decrease in the forest sounds itself continued until the only thing that I could hear was the sounds of my boots on the path and my breathing, nothing else. And suddenly I realized I was up Bleak Creek without a paddle in sight. Oh, the sun by this time was starting to go down. It was getting darker and darker. And then I realized that was probably Bigfoot falling. So I decided at once to camp out right in the middle of the riverbed, because it was impossible to walk on those really big pebbles without making a lot of sound. and that would at least provide me with some warning. So while there was still light, I rapidly pitched a light yellow tent, and I hung up gas on some paracord on top of the inside of the tent and made a quick meal. And I hoped that I wasn't going to become one myself. I walked out of the tent and looked around, and there was just the sound of the brook and my crunching on the pebbles of the dry river bed. And I went out a little bit and took a picture of my glowing yellow tent against the pitch black river valley, and I knew that no one was coming to my rescue, and I felt like I was visible for miles, and I probably was. And then something strange happened, which was my kind of Irish warrior side took over, and I didn't feel fear, and I started talking to myself out loud, very, very loud, in the accent I'd grown up with, which was a Belfast accent, and turned the air blue, but all fear left, and I was replaced with, I was ready to fight. So this sounds crazy now when I think about it, but I started shouting. I started saying, "You want to fight, Bigfoot? Come on here! I am ready for you!" And I bellowed it out across the river valley, and there's no response. So I then thought to myself, what can I make into a weapon? And I had 4 spare, thick aluminium tent poles. I had a knife, and I had my cooking stove. So I fashioned poles into a shaft, and then made a spear from the knife and taped it down hard. And then I thought it would be a good idea to have a flamethrower, so I attached the cooking stove at the end. So it was a mini flamethrower, but with the emphasis on the mini. So the tent was positioned lengthways along the direction of the valley, and it had an opening at one end and gauze in the flap of the tent in the other. So I had a pretty good field of view, at least when it was light at each end. And then the moon appeared over the treetops, and I felt that battle was coming, and I sat in the tent and waited, and there were no sounds. The forest was totally silent. So pretty soon there was a loud splash, and someone entered the brook, coming from the dense thick forest going up really high, up to my right. And I thought to myself, how did it cross the riverbed? I would have heard it. And then, after one big loud splash, I heard the sound of really heavy steps on the big pebbles and the rocks, and it was really heavy. It sounded like those heavy machines that people making a road were used to flatten tarmac or a road. And it was coming towards the tent. It was like a big crunch, just a single crunch, and then a pause, and then a crunch, and then a pause. And it got to probably about 10 feet from the tent, and then just stopped. And I lit the cooking stove at the end of my homemade sphere, and I started swearing in a cold fury. "Come near my tent and I'll kill ye, Bigfoot! You wanna fight me, my guest?" Northern Belfast accent is great for getting very antagonistic. So then started walking all the way around the tent, maintaining its distance at about 10 feet. Me swearing and shouting, daring it to attack. No room for fear. Just this absolutely defiant fury. Crunch, pause, crunch, pause, crunch, pause. And after what seemed like hours, it had walked all the way around the tent and had moved to the brook, and then it stopped. And I went to the end of the tent and looked out, and there was this huge, massive being, maybe 9 to 10 feet tall, and it had blazing ruby eyes, a body covered in longish black hair, huge build, massive chest, face slightly hidden in shadow, and it was directly facing the tent, and it was looking directly into my eyes, and I just held its gaze. And we just looked at each other. And I had no thoughts going on in my mind. There was no fear. There was just this extraordinary looking being in front of me. And there was just this presence. And I was in presence with it, just there with each other.
Utah homes have dangerous radon levels.
My wife was only 32. And she so helped me so bad until the gym better work out. So this really causes me some things. You don't have to be smoker to develop things. It's something like radon gas. We can actually test it.
Protect your family today. Get a free radon test kit at utahradon.org. That's utahradon.org.
Access big savings every day, all in the Smiths app. Get 3-pound packs of flavorful private selection Angus 85% lean ground round for $3.99 a pound with your card. Then get 2-liter bottles of Coca-Cola, Pepsi, or 7-Up for $1.49 each with your card and a digital coupon. Shop these deals at your local Kroger today, or tap the screen now to download the Smiths app to save big today. Smiths, fresh for everyone. Prices and product availability subject to change. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
Taxes, now taxes,
Pivoting, almost like a dancer. I remember it being very graceful. 1 foot, and then it moved, just with the most astonishing leap into the forest, which would have been like, it was like as long as a reasonable human long jumper. The stride was astonishing, especially up this really steep slope. And then one more, the same great stride. So it was like splash, and it was gone. And then, literally, the moment it had left, it was like someone pressed a button, and all of the sounds of the night forest that I'd heard on my first 2 wonderful nights, they all came back at once. They all turned up to 11. And that's one of the strangest things about the whole experience. I had no fear. I turned and I got into my sleeping bag, turned out the light, and I had one of the best sleeps of my life. I must have slept for like 10 or 11 hours, just straight. And I woke up the next day feeling brilliant, absolutely wonderful. And I looked around the tent and I saw that there was like a pattern of sort of indentations, but they weren't footprints because it wasn't like sand, it was like great big pebbles. You could tell there was something there. And after that, I packed up my tent, I walked for the best part of another day, just the sounds of the rolling forest and beautiful summer sunshine. And since then, I've thought a lot the last few weeks of it. And one of the things which I did is I ran back the experience in my mind. I tried to put myself in the position of the Bigfoot that was following me. What was it that attracted me? And when I tried to do that, it was very interesting. It came out. And it was attracted by this huge bright yellow backpack that I had, which went all the way up from my hips to like halfway up my head. It was very vivid. And it was very curious about this, so it followed me. And then was curious and just wanted to kind of come and have a look. And I got the impression that if I'd put some food out and laid it out, that it would just sat down for a bit. We'd have looked at each other and then it would have gone off. And so there's that. Those things can also be wrong. And then a chilling thing which I came across was around the missing 411. People disappear on national parks. And I looked at dots of all of the missing people in the decades since I had been to that area. And it's just covered in dots of people who've disappeared all around the Rogue River, Siskiyou area, and Shasta. So that's like the other side, where I think, did my acting like a Belfast Wolverine actually save my life? Because I've heard stories of Bigfoot with glowing red eyes that some people describe as, as Gugway, man-eaters. So, I don't know. So it's a strange thing to have both of those things. I could have had an evening meal with the Sasquatch, or I could have been an evening meal of the Sasquatch. So that's my Bigfoot story.
Well, that's it for tonight's show. If you've had a Bigfoot sighting and would like to be a guest, please go to mybigfootsighting.com and let us know. Thanks for listening. Have a great night.
Kidding. What in the hell? What's that supposed to mean? That's right. The arrow, man. The arrow. Bumpy roads they need fix. Stop putting your high beams and shit. Fix your light. It's like if people not look at their headlights and notice that they need to fix it. Like I do a walk around in my car. Make sure all the lights are working. At least. Every time that it's either a drone or something, it's always there. It's like flying really slow. Made it to my stop. This is where I say adios.